Hello and welcome again to One Starfish, where our mission is to help change the world one person or one starfish at a time. As always, guys, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, share. It's how we get the word out about what we do. I'm excited for our guest today. I just met Alexis. She is a writer and practitioner of self-healing through unconventional methods, including psychedelics and deep inner work. With a background in finance and consulting, her personal journey led her away from the corporate world and into a life centered around authenticity and transformation. Pain is a Portal to Beauty is her first book, which will be in the show notes, a testament to the power of feeling deeply and embracing the unknown. Welcome to the show, Alexis.
Thanks, Angela. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Let's get into things. So, going from you got into the corporate world into finance, I believe you said.
Right.
What got you into that in the first place?
Well, I was always a numbers person. I loved math and the concept of money. I wasn't really like desiring wealth on my own, but I just was fascinated by it. So I went to uh, a business school that's just really known for that kind of thing, and its main focus is finance, and I just followed the flow of that, and that landed me in investment banking in New York and San Francisco.
Okay. And then how long were you working in the corporate world before you got out?
Let's see. So I did investment banking for a few years and then transitioned and had my own consulting practice for about 15 years. So about 20 years before my life changed and it was no longer my career path.
Okay. And so you started your own consulting firm. So have you, does entrepreneurship run in your family, or were you like the first one?
I mean, my dad was an attorney, and so he certainly had a very entrepreneurial, he was a plaintiff side attorney, so took a lot of risk there.
Okay.
I would say I was less of a risk seeker. Mine felt like actually I went to school, I got the job before I graduated, and then when I quit my job, I got the next kind of gig that started my consulting practice that day. And then people just started calling me to help them with things. So the consulting practice wasn't like a jump off the cliff type thing. It was a very measured, hedged. I actually went to law school as well during that time. So I was very much hedging my bets. I would not say I was entrepreneurial in that way, but I had the skills and it just kind of, came to me. So I was fortunate to do that because I enjoyed it.
Interesting. So what I find is most people when they say it wasn't that whatever, it was, and they don't realize what they did to make it happen.
I think that's a fair point. I will say though that writing this book and leaving that world, this has felt like I jumped off a cliff. So I think there was some element of like I
Okay.
knew other people were taking bigger risks that I wasn't comfortable taking,
Right.
and now knowing kind of what fills my heart and what I'm here to do, I've taken risks like that, and it's terrifying. But I'm willing to because I know it's the right thing for me.
Cool. Well, let's touch on that then. So what caused you to take this risk that actually feels like a risk?
Well, so I loved I loved using my math brain in corporate finance, but it just never really was something I was excited to do. I always wanted to help people. It didn't feel like I was helping anybody. I worked with really nice people and I was really grateful for that. But I had the sense that there was something more for me. And, my life changed about 5 years ago. I was walking in the woods and I heard a voice that said, "If you die today, your life will have been a tragedy." And that was a terrifying message to
Hello,
receive.
hello. Is
Yes, like
this a prank?
who
What's
just
happening?
said that? But truthfully, it resonated. And the career was one small aspect of that. I think I felt more of that kind of tragedy, lack of fulfillment in my relationships than in the career. But the career was part of that, where it's like there's more here. I don't know what it is. I don't know what I'm here to do, but it's not this. So ultimately, that led me to be really open to letting go of the pieces of my life. And at some point, I just woke up one day and my book started coming out of me. It just flowed out of me, and it was like, this is it. This is what I'm here to do. But to follow that path and to start shutting down my business and let go of those pieces was really quite scary.
I bet. So I don't know how to word this. So you went from running a business that I'm guessing was pretty successful to
Yeah, I was doing
becoming
great.
a full-time author,
Yeah,
basically.
I mean, it's kind of like yes, and I did both for a while. Like while I
Okay.
was writing the book, I
That
was
sounds
working.
smart.
I was doing the, yeah, partly because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know when it was going to be done. I mean, there's just so many
Right.
unknowns. But at some point, I couldn't do both, and I had to let go of the business. And what this becomes. The second book is already feeling like it wants to be written. There's an openness to what might be surrounding this book. So there's an element of just kind of putting my head down and doing what feels right and trusting that it will work out. That lets go of the control that I felt really good having with the business, right? I knew I could plot out what that would look like and I'd have all my bills paid and everything would work out. Now I'm in a place where I trust it will work out, but it's not with, I don't have the reins. I trust that there's a larger energy at play here.
So your book title is Pain is a Portal to Beauty. Um, do you feel that you were in a lot of pain and that's where you were and now you're kind of in the beauty? Tell us a little bit about how you felt
Yeah.
and where that title even comes from.
Well, I think that's where that startling message that I got in the woods was a wake up call to help me realize how much pain I had in my body and how much I wasn't looking at it. So I think in retrospect, I was really deeply pained, but I was numbing it. I was getting through. I was doing all the things that, we know well to do with coping mechanisms. And what that message did for me was help me see kind of really clearly that what was there and that I had to start going toward the pain instead of going away from the pain. Because I think, it's very much like, oh, if you're in pain, something's wrong, go distract yourself or go, push through it. Or I mean, there's just all this messaging that says, don't stop and sit with it because that sounds terrible. And what I realized was that I had to stop and sit with it. And by stopping and sitting with it, it let it finally be felt and leave my body. And then I could find this extraordinary beauty on the other side that, yes, that's kind of, it's not that the pain is done, but I have discovered so much incredible stuff about me, just in talents that I didn't know I had, skills that were kind of locked away with the pain, and also just in the way I experience life and relationships and all of those things.
What do you think caused all the pain?
Well, when I was young, my mom was depressed and then ultimately became addicted to drugs and then went to rehab and then died. And so it was this years long kind of disappearance, of her. And it was something that was so confusing and so like she went away to rehab and 18 months later they found her body in a field. Like it just was literally like she kind of like faded
Super
away.
trauma as a child.
Yeah, so I
Oh,
couldn't handle it. So I just, at some point we went to visit her at rehab and when we were driving away, something in my body knew this isn't going to get better. And so at that moment, I think my body felt the heartbreak that I was feeling and started to numb and dissociated from the pain. So it's very clear kind of mark when I was 11 that distanced me from my pain, that I didn't even know it was there. My story was, oh, my mom died and that was sad. Like I miss her. That was kind of the extent of my story. And it wasn't until I was in couples counseling with my ex-husband where the counselor was like, wait, what happened? Like you need to go to therapy. So it's taken a long time for me to unpack that and really look at what happened and feel how terrible it felt in each phase of that, abandonment, basically.
yeah. I mean, that is it's pretty major.
Yeah.
I mean, but nothing you did, and not, but that's a lot of times where trauma starts to come from. So
Right.
you started some therapy right after that, a little bit, or when was your
Yeah.
first time you actually started any kind of inner work or any kind of therapy or anything like
I
that?
guess when would that have been? I don't know I mean, probably 30s.
Okay. So
So,
20
20
years
years
later.
of that stuff
Yeah.
being hidden.
Yeah. And then did that help?
It definitely did. I mean, but there was so much there. I can now say in retrospect that it just is kind of like you have to peel back layer by layer, right? You can't,
Mm.
I didn't have any capacity of dealing with pain because I hadn't dealt with any pain because I'd shut it off. So it's kind of like, oh, let's talk about your mom died and that's sad. Like you kind of start with that area and you spend a little time there and kind of get some facility with that level of pain. And then, over time you can start to feel about like, okay, well, she wasn't the best mom because she couldn't be, but how did that feel? Did you feel a lot of pressure? Just kind of like little
Mhm.
by little going through these layers. And so I did therapy for years and it did help me get in touch with a lot of things like my attachment style, a lot of this kind of Western
Mhm.
therapy philosophy stuff. And starting to recognize how I showed up in relationship, and it was really super helpful. But I plateaued, and I felt like I couldn't break through, and that's when I heard the voice that said, "Yeah, you're not good. You got to keep going." And then I got really willing to try some big stuff to really look at it, to stop hiding from it at all.
And so, what were some of the things that you tried? I know you talk in the book about psychedelics and deep inner work, unconventional methods. So, tell us a little bit about some of the things that you tried. And I mean, you're not a doctor. Recommendations are, I get all that. But what are some things that, if someone's listening to this, that you might, yeah, just explain some of your experiences, I guess, and then
Yeah.
see what resonates with our listeners.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the first big piece is that I was willing to look at it. And by being willing to look at it meant that I had to be willing to let go of pieces of my life. I loved my husband. I felt really good about my career. I mean, there are lots of things that I thought were good for me, and so it was very scary to let those go. So the first piece I think was just being willing to look at it and being willing to entertain that my life may not look the way I thought it would. And then ultimately, and I'll just take a step back first, which is somehow I knew when I heard that voice, I knew I needed to start unpacking pain. And so I would just go for walks and listen to sad music and just grieve. And one day, after doing that for a long time, one day this trajectory came into view, which was that my grandfather died by suicide. And then my mother had her tragic ending to her life. And then I've been sad for 40 years. And then I have my son and what's coming to him, right? It's
Okay.
just this very,
Yep.
like, it seems so
DNA.
obvious, right? This is coming. So that's why I was willing to take these big steps, because I didn't want that for myself, of course, but mostly, for my son. He's a huge motivator. So there was letting go of the pieces of my life, the willingness to do that. And then I, randomly got called by a psychedelic educational institution to help build a financial model for them. And they trained psychedelic guides. And so just kind of came into my life. I didn't know anything about psychedelics. I didn't know how to spell the word psychedelics.
I don't
So
either. That's why I was glad you told me how to say
yeah.
it.
So and I didn't know that there was more than one kind. I mean, I literally knew zero things about psychedelics. But at some point, when my husband and I did ultimately decide to get a divorce, and my life was kind of falling apart, I called a life coach, and she said that I might find value in using psychedelics as part of my healing journey. So ultimately, I did do that with a guide, and I did MDMA first, which is known as ecstasy, the love drug. But what it does in a psychedelic, in a kind of therapy realm, is that it lowers the fear response so that people can approach their emotions with less fear, right? Because emotions can be terrifying. So this really lets you kind of go there with almost like this companion that tells you you're going to be okay. So you can start to look at some of these things that you can't look at without it or couldn't previously. And then the second psychedelic I did was psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms. And that one was pretty dark for me. The first journey was straight to the underworld. They were dancing with my mom's teeth. They were
Oh,
barking at me
gross.
about how I had more work to do. It was just like,
Oh, yeah.
whoa, really painful. But what I learned from that is that I had so much more grief to unpack. I thought I should be done by now, but they said, nope, you've got so much more work to do. So in the integration, when you do these psychedelic journeys, you have this experience, with the psychedelics, and you most of the time for me was especially with mushrooms, had no clue what it meant. So it's this integration period in the weeks and months that follow where you start to kind of understand, and it rewires your brain, and things just click differently than they did before the journey. So for me, I learned from that though that I need to grieve. And so anytime I have sadness, don't go away from it, go toward it. And anytime I did that, I would have, a big grieving session, and I would go outside and the colors were more vibrant. It's like it opened my eyes to beauty in the world that I couldn't see when I was filled with pain. And then the third psychedelic I worked with is ayahuasca, and it's an Amazonian plant. And it was the longest. I worked with the ayahuasca for the longest, and just you'd go in and ayahuasca. I'd have conversations with the medicine, also called Mother Aya, just like this all-knowing therapist who knew everything about you and everything about love and the world. And so we'd have these conversations where I'd say, one time I thought of my sister and I thought I should send her healing energy, and Mother Aya said, no, keep that for yourself. And it was a lesson of until I'm filled with my own love, until I heal myself, I actually can't love other people. And once I'm filled with my own love, I don't have to do anything. Love just spills out of me toward other people. So just kind of like these lessons that we'd have huge grieving sessions where, again, I could just release more pain. And other times where my body would disappear, I'd kind of merge with love and consciousness. And it was quite, I mean, all of these things were very, very life changing. After every one, it just like I saw the world differently and I could interact with others differently.
And I will add, if you're listening to this, don't go out there, just go try these things without
Yeah.
professionals around. One of the keys is that I've heard is yes, make sure you have someone around that can help you because if it does go dark, you need
Yeah.
someone to be there that knows what they're doing.
Yes.
And Adam, in the financial industry, get your insurance before you do anything. Please get your insurance. So, anyway, that's my caveat. I got to add into that. That's
Yeah.
that's really cool. And then, so you really dug into that. Is that something that you continue to do or work with, or kind of as you've reached a point where you're finding the beauty? I mean, I know you still got a long way to go because we all do, but like where you're at now compared to where you are, do you find you do less of it, and kind of don't need it as much anymore to open yourself up?
It's a great question. I mean, ayahuasca was such a meaningful experience to me. Even though I heard that voice in the woods, before that moment, I wasn't a spiritual person. Didn't know whose voice it was. I didn't know. I was trying to do therapy so that I could heal, so that I could be happier. Really, that was kind of the context for me. But psychedelics really helped me connect more to kind of the spiritual side of things. And I thought I would do ayahuasca forevermore because it was such a beautiful spiritual practice. And then in February, we did a 2 night ceremony over a weekend, and the medicine said that I didn't need to come back. And I was devastated because I wanted to do this. I wanted to do it forever.
Mhm.
But what Mother Aya said to me was, "You'll never know all of who you are if you continue to look outside yourself." So
Really good. Mhm.
my sense is that I'm not sure that I'll never do it again, but I think what the way I was doing it was going to the medicine to say,
It's almost
"Can
like
you?"
another addiction, like it's like alcohol or any kind of a
Well,
drug
and
almost.
it could be, right?
Yeah.
I think for me, it was kind of like I used it well until that moment. And then
That's what I mean. Like
at
it
that
was that
moment,
point where it would have become, I just
right,
run here to feel this feeling and
right.
keep doing it. But yeah, that's really
You're
cool.
chasing something. And
Yeah.
and so what I've learned since then is a couple things. One is that I can do the work now. The medicine's taught me how to go into this pain, how to find these things, how to transform it. So I that's something I learned and can take away from it. But another thing is that I think I was going to the medicine in a way to fix myself because
Mm.
as you said earlier about my mom, it's like there was a part of me that thought that my mom left me because it was my fault.
Yes,
And
and that's
so, on
common.
some level, all the self help stuff I've done, I imagine was somewhat based in if I can fix myself, then I'm lovable. So, I can imagine also at some point going back to the medicines with some different reason that's not fix me, right? At this point, I now realize, oh, I don't need to be fixed. I can sit with that. Maybe my mom loved me, maybe she didn't. Actually, I'm okay with whatever it is. I'm okay where I am. So, it is a transformation that has happened since doing the medicines.
Cool. And as we transition into some of this, I'm just curious, like I mean, and we don't have to touch on this really more than this, but you went through a separation slash divorce.
Hmm.
Um, how did everyone else like handle this transition from like corporate, which to me is like, what everyone tells you to do.
Right.
And now you're going to like be in psychedelics and writing a book about like deep inner work and like kind
Yeah.
of like you went from like a set job to like a little bit of woo woo stuff.
Oh yeah, major woo woo.
I'm saying it, like quite a bit of woo woo. How was it taken for people around you that knew you your entire life or like a lot of your life?
I think on paper that it's a transition that you might worry about, but they've seen how happy I am, right? I mean, I was a sad person, and even if I didn't display that outwardly all the time, the life energy was not there. And now I feel alive. So I think mostly, I mean, I think every single person can just see the light in my eyes that wasn't there before, and they're all just so glad for that. So it's been a really supportive journey because, the proof's in the pudding. I'm so, I'm in a very different place than I was before. My life's
So
not a
when
tragedy anymore. So that's
That's really good.
great.
So when you quit your business, because now you have, that wasn't something people are like, "What are you doing? I don't know about this,
I think
Alexis."
there's an
Like,
element of that, but I think there's an element of, okay, she knows something. Like it's like it maybe
they
there's a
trust
like
you.
a yeah, I think they don't see how it will unfold. I don't see how it will unfold, but they see how well I'm doing, and so that yeah, they trust me. And
Cool.
if it comes down to it, I'll go back. Like there's kind of like
Right.
doesn't matter. I can try this for a while. I'm gonna take care of my son. I'm gonna do the right things. So I think they trust me. Yeah.
That's really cool. So breaking generational curses um
Hmm.
in what you're doing, which is really powerful. And
Yeah.
yeah, is there anything in the book that's like a step that someone that you'd recommend? I obviously get the book, guys. We're not going to go into it much more than that, but is there something in the book that you want to share that's like a step in there that people could take if they're feeling they could listen to this and they're like, man, I feel like that. I'm really sad all the time. My life, like depression, all this stuff, really for not like outwardly any major reason, but just a deep inner feeling. What would you say like is a first step that you talk about in the book that someone could take toward finding that beauty?
Well, I mean, I think a couple things here. First of all, the book is told through story, so I certainly take ownership that this is my journey and others, I have deep
Right.
respect that everybody has, everybody knows their path more than anybody else. And that's something that's been surprising to me is that I keep listening to other people to tell me what to do. And
Mm-hmm.
what I'm finding is that I know best for me. It's just taken me a long time to realize that I can trust myself. And
Mm-hmm.
the medicines, as much as I was seeking help from something outside myself, the medicines take us to our own wisdom. So I just first want to just honor that everybody has access to their own wisdom more than anybody else. They know. But if there's two things. One, if somebody's having really intense pain like depression, that's something that I feel like they're going to know what they've been doing and what they, want to do. Psychedelics are known for helping with kind of bigger things like that, right? Like I was carrying a ton of pain, and psychedelics really was much more effective for me than years of therapy, or at least it was the next step for me. But for the person who's just kind of feeling stuck and not so getting by, I think so many people are just getting by. What I have found is that taking the coping mechanisms off the table really helps bring quiet, and in the quiet we start to hear voices that have been trying to get through to us, but they can't because it's so loud in our lives, whether that's social media and just kind of entertainment, whether it's food and beverage. There's so many things that take up the space, frankly, because it's comforting and we don't want to look at these things. So if somebody's feeling like they want to take a step toward that, then taking, you know, 10 minutes, an hour, a day, a week, whatever you feel like you can do, and turning down the volume on everything, then you're going to start to hear messages. And you're going to start to hear messages either, it could be a really pissed message that says, don't do that, and honoring that anger, or a really sad, sadness like, oh, now I feel lonely, and honoring that loneliness. Like whatever it is for me, it's every step feeling the emotion and honoring it instead of trying to run from it. That's been really helpful to me to kind of get to these deeper layers that, again, we didn't talk about this specifically, but the book was one of the gifts that I discovered. I thought I was a terrible writer my whole life. And by unlocking this pain, I found out I was a writer and a singer and a dancer. I mean, I thought I wasn't a creative person. And so what's amazing is that when we locked up this pain, we're also locking up this goodness. And if you're willing to go there, you're gonna discover some things that are really quite heartening.
So good. Um, Guys, do that. And if it's really deep, I will say, obviously, talk to your doctor. Sometimes there's a
Right.
medical side to all of this, and we both know this. Um, so, in wrapping up, I always had three final questions, and then anything we didn't touch on that you think would be really impactful for listeners. And as I said at the beginning, guys, everything, her book and all this stuff, Alexis's information will all be in the show notes. Reach out, check out the book, you know, reach out to Alexis if it resonates with you and let her know all that kind of good stuff. First question is if someone's looking for their purpose, what's one sentence you could say that could help them find it?
Whew. Um, find quiet.
Okay. Number two, what's a favorite quote and why?
This one, and I can't attribute it to the person, I forget the name, but this is one I've liked recently that's is not always so. I think it's very easy or very tempting to get to a place and say, "Oh, this is the truth," or "These are the keys," or "This is the way," and then a year later, things kind of shift, and you go, "Oh," or it's this other way. There's kind of a lightheartedness to if you hold things lightly, then you can go more with the flow of life, and I think that helps alleviate some of the stuckness as well.
That's good. And third and final question, what's one word or sentence you want on your gravestone? How do you want to
Just
be remembered?
love, just love.
Cool. Being that was the first thing that brought you to all this journey,
Yeah.
interestingly enough. So if you run into someone in a coffee shop and they're like, Alexis, we, read the book, we've checked out some of this stuff. Maybe they've started some of the journeys in psychedelics or just deep inner work themselves, finding that beauty. What's something though that we didn't touch on that you think would be really impactful to leave our listeners with?
The part of the book that I find really most interesting because it was most surprising to me. I mean, it was all surprising to me, all wonderfully surprising. And when I pursued a new relationship after my marriage, I jumped in too quickly, according to experts, and everything was just kind of like what I thought it shouldn't be, but my body kept telling me it was the right thing. And so for me, that relationship, being in relationship is a mirror for us. And as much as we want other people to change it, so much I find that mirror tells me, oh, you have something to look at. So I think that part of the book I think is a really fun part because it's a real life will they won't they romantic relationship kind of thing, but it's also just such an invitation to go inward and discover more of yourself. So it really isn't ever about him, but he was the vehicle that helped me discover more of myself.
That's good. I love that. Guys, I'm sure you want to share this. Make sure to, like I said, share, rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. If we can go out there and we can help one person or one starfish at a time together, we can help change the world. Thanks for being on, Alexis.
Thanks, Angela.